If you're anything like me, you're probably a little bit obsessed with camera motion. Nothing can bring such vibrance and life and dynamism to your work as a little bit of motion, just a little bit of intentional, planned out motion. I've tried a lot of things over the years. I've tried sliders, jibs, all sorts of stuff to get a little bit of motion into my footage and raise it up in production value. But one thing I've struggled with is that perfect 360-degree arc shot. Let's see if I'm gonna, yeah, that goes right past the microphone there. Yeah, just, whoops, almost right past the microphone. That sort of thing right there. Yeah, I've tried that a lot over the years and nothing really seems to work properly. I've tried to use a turntable. The problem with the turntable is your subject spins, but your background, your lights, everything just stay exactly where they are. So there's no real motion, there's no real energy in the shot. I tried to build my own rig and it sort of worked, but not really. It didn't really fulfill the need. So when I saw this for the second time recently, I decided to go for it. I say second time because I did originally see it about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was about $500 then, which I thought was ridiculously overpriced for what I wanted to do, considering it is basically a one-trick pony. It does a 360-degree arc around your subject. That's it. There's no other purpose for this. You can't really bend it in other ways. It just does that one thing, but it does it well. So when I saw it recently, it was about $200. $200 on Amazon. I thought, hey, that's not bad. Let's give it a shot. And I grabbed it, and I have to say, it has actually scratched that itch. It has fit the purpose perfectly. There are a couple of interesting things about it, so I thought I'd share those with you, give you some tips and tricks about how to use it, and maybe show you some footage about what you can expect to get out of it. And then we'll talk a little bit about whether or not it might be for you. Probably not, but possibly, depending who you are. We'll do all of that. What we won't do is we won't do the unboxing and the building for two basic reasons. One is that there's lots of videos out there that already do that sort of thing, so there's no point in sort of repeating it and wasting your time. If you want to see that, someone else has already done that quite well. The other thing is that, yeah, it's a single sheet instruction. It takes about 4 or 5 minutes to put together. It's very, very straightforward and very, very simple. So let me just show you what's going on here. Like I said, I'm not going to build the whole thing, but I will point out the different parts and what they do and what they mean. On this side, you have your camera mount. There is a knob to undo, and you can raise and lower that there. But when you tighten that up, it'll go up so high. I do feel that this is a little bit short. I would love to see it be quite a bit longer so it could get more of an angle down, but it is what it is. And there are other ways that I can figure that out. There are extensions. I've got bits and pieces lying around here. I've managed to do it, but it would have been nice if it was a little bit higher. Let's put that down. It does come with its own ball head. I'll put that here, and as you can see, this is pretty generic and pretty basic. It does have a nice knob for turning, like tightening it up so it's nice and firm, but it's pretty straightforward, and it's not really that functional. I would recommend that as soon as you can, you replace that and you get yourself a better one that's a little bit easier to work with, especially if you want to do what I do, which is unify your quick release plates on all your devices. All mine use the same. They all use a 501 PL, which is a Manfrotto standard. If I was to wipe it all clean and go from scratch, I'd probably switch to Arca, but for now, this is what I've got and it works quite well. So yeah, you got your ball head there, you've got your center column so you can raise or lower it. All in the middle, you've got 2 poles, which basically wrap around the bearing system. And as you can see, it does spin quite smoothly and quite freely. Really do like the smoothness of it. Over on this side, we've got 2 things that are important, but I use a little bit differently than most people. When you watch another video of this device or you read the manual or anything, you'll notice that this section usually is on top. This is the counterweights. They're very important so that the whole thing stays balanced, but also so that it spins smoothly and freely. These weights, they're threaded, very, very straightforward and very, very simple, and you can move them backwards and forwards as needed. Now, the thing about this is this: because they are threaded, they can hang down like this, and that's how I like it. Usually you see them on top, and that means that with all of them there, it's going to be above the level here. So if I was filming something like a coffee cup, you would never see. It would just move behind the coffee cup at all times. But if I was filming something small, perhaps a ring, some jewelry, something like that, that would be quite annoying to have that popping up over the back. So I just flipped it around and it works just fine. The other thing is the backdrop, which we'll get into in a second because I'm realizing I forgot to mention one thing. By default, standard, when this comes out of the box, it comes with this, and the entire rig mounts on this. And as you can see, if that was sitting there, that's quite short. It's tall enough that it would clears a table when it spins, but it is quite short. I've actually mounted it on this. This is an old Avenger stand. It's a big boom stand. It's huge, and this is the lowest it will go, the lowest possible. I actually put it on this because I really much prefer it. The level, the height is perfect. I can see what I'm working with right here. I can spin my camera around. I can be right at the back. It's right at eye level for me. I can make adjustments. I can see what I'm doing. That works really, really well for me. The other benefit of this is it's so heavy. It is so big and heavy that it is solid. It is sturdy, much sturdier than it is on that small base plate. I was filming something recently on this, and I moved the whole rig over onto that base plate on a table on the other side of the room, and yeah, it started getting really, really rocky. This is a much better solution in my opinion. Now, I will point out that if you did want to use this, it does have the 4 holes, so you can bolt it down to something if you need to, or you could always just sort of put some extra weights on here if you're having some issues. But me, I like the stand here. And the other thing I like with the stand is that it's portable. It's set up ready to work, and I can just take off my subject and move the whole thing where I want. Recently I was filming and I wanted this for the backdrop, and it spun around, so it was pretty much in this position. However, the day after, it was a beautiful sunny day. My front yard looked lovely. I opened up the big door there. I put this right in front of the door, and yeah, as my camera was moving, the door was here, and the footage just looked absolutely lovely out in the background, just a little bit blurry and moving around. I really, really, really liked that. One thing I will show you is the backdrop here. Now, I haven't really got into this at this point, but the thing is, the real reason for this and not a turntable is that when you have a turntable, the subject spins around, but the world stays still. I think I mentioned that earlier. So if you flip this around, this is the backdrop system that it comes with. And it just goes on just like so. And with that on there, as you can see, you have a backdrop that is static, you have a camera that is static, and your subject sits there. It's going to look very, very much like a turntable style footage. You're not going to get that blur. You're not going to get that beautiful rush of background. You're not going to get the momentum that you get from having a real world background spinning around your subject. So I don't use this too often, but it does come in handy because sometimes you need that turntable look. And specifically for me, it comes in handy because I can put green screen material on here. I can take something to raise up my subject, just wrap some green tape around that or something and just raise that up a little bit. And now I can get a shot, a full 360 shot of my subject on a green background, which then can be extracted in post, and then I can drop that footage into anything I want. I can have my cup here, for example, spinning and floating through space and coming down through the clouds and landing in the city as a giant spaceship, or whatever I wanted to do. I can do that using a backdrop. But for me, like I said, the real thrill of this is having that real world motion, that real world momentum. So I just flip this around like this. I keep it on here most of the time. The reason I do that is that One, I can always find this. It's always here, so it's easy to find. It's not going to get lost or damaged or anything. And two, it adds just a little bit more weight on this side, so it's just a little bit extra for balancing it, so it can spin itself around. The next thing I want to get into is specifically that, spinning it around. It is quite well balanced, and those bearings in there are very smooth, and as you can see, it moves quite easily. There is the tiniest little bit of give in the arms. I push like that, you can see. So you do want to be careful. You don't want to just jump into it and start grabbing it and spinning it around. You want to learn to develop a gentle touch, like so. Fairly easy after a little while. And one of the things I found is that you don't just stop it. So if you just stop in a position, it will wobble. What you want to do is break it. You bring it around and you go. Just bring it around and catch it and keep your hand moving with it. And so it eases itself into position. It's not incredibly easy to pinpoint an exact spot, but if you do need to land on an exact spot, the easier way to do it is to start there. So if I wanted to have that logo as my hero shot at the end, I would set that up, I would frame that, and then I would start and spin away from that. And stop, just breaking it. And then in post, I would flip that, reverse that footage so that it goes the other way around and stops exactly where I want without any wobble or anything like that. Other than that, yeah, not much to really say about using it. It's just a case of getting the shot that you want, primarily practicing, getting very, very comfortable with moving it smoothly, moving it to the speed that you want. Next thing I want to get into is the lighting. The lighting is incredibly important, and more often than not, you're probably going to want to be filming at a high frame rate, so you're going to need a little bit extra light on top of things. So generally speaking, you want to have your light above or below the field of vision of your lens, because if it comes around, imagine that this microphone here is a light. As it comes around, that would be shining directly into the lens, quite bright. It would be a lot of glare, it would blow out your shots. You'd need to have that up a little bit higher so that as it goes around, it passes underneath the light. You might get some beautiful flaring going on, but you're not going to blow out your image or anything like that. So have your lights up here or have them down here. Generally speaking, keep them out of this level just because, yeah, it's going to be a bit weird if you do so. Also keep in mind that if you flip this around and have this as your backdrop, if you had a light here as it comes around, all of a sudden this is going to block out your light and it's going to get a bit funky, a bit weird, not exactly what you want. I keep telling you that this is a 360-degree orbit platform or orbit device. Chances are that if you're like me, you love that idea, but you end up in practice only using from there to there. Like you only use a little bit, only a second or two of each take of each bit. Because yeah, less is more, right? Less is more. If you find that you're not getting the light that you want, you need a little bit closer light, you need a little bit more fill light. Perhaps in this case, you've got a bright light here and you've got the dark side. Perhaps the side is a little bit too dark. You can grab something like this. This is a magic arm and a clamp. Very, very simple. Just clamp straight onto there. Just like so. You can adjust this however you want once it's in place. Just bring it up. Bring it up. Right about there, I think. Bring that on. There you go. And now we've got what I call a traveling light. It travels with the camera. It travels with your field of view. You still got your ambient light up here, but as you move around, it's going to go with it. The other thing, I'm not going to do it right now, but you could take another one of these, grab it onto the end back here, and you can give a little bit of a rim light if you want. Even if you're not using a light up here, it can be just what you need to separate this from the background. Let's turn that off quickly. That's pretty much everything that I need to share with you. It is a fun device to use. It is a fun piece to work with. It really lifts up your footage quite a bit. There's a lot of like I said, momentum and life that can be added to your footage just by having a little bit of motion from here to here. That said, I'm not going to try and sell you on this. I don't think that this is for everyone. I think that this is for people that do a lot of product shots day in, day out. You're always coming back to that sort of work, and you'll find that you'll use this way more than you ever thought you would. However, with that said, if you are just doing 1 or 2 shots a year, if it's not really a common thing for you to try and get 360 shots of product, yeah, grab yourself a $20 turntable off Amazon. It'll do the job. You don't get that blurry momentum of the background, but you will get that full degree of being able to see your subject. I've got a smoke machine here, and so if I just fill this up just quickly, and as you can see, that rises like steam. So if you're shooting with a high frame rate now and you spin that all the way around, you end up getting something very, very similar to a Matrix style shot, full sort of bullet time. Doesn't really work perfectly with steam or smoke because the momentum draws the smoke away, but it works really, really well with pouring liquid. So if you're filling glasses or pouring a beer or something like that, might be the shot that you want to get. Yeah, I think, like I said, I've shared everything I need to about the device. I've shared everything I need to about little tips and tricks about how to use it. It's pretty darn straightforward. The only thing I'm going to say at this point is yeah, as I said earlier, it is a one-trick pony. It does one thing and does that one thing really, really well. There's a hole you could fall into of just doing the same thing over and over. And I would recommend that with this, as with anything else that you deal with in your creative life, be imaginative, be creative, think about what you can do. You can do an awful lot with one trick if you put your mind to it. Switch out to different lights, have flashing strobing lights, match cut from one thing to another, use macro lenses and get in really, really close to the details, and crank up that shutter speed so that you're just moving barely an inch, but then move it real fast. All sorts of stuff that you can do if you put your mind to it, and that's where something like this is really, really going to shine. I think I've shared everything I need to. I filmed this video way too many times today. Hopefully this is the final take. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, and yeah, take care. Oh yeah, coffee?